Dreams. We all have them, whether wild or wacky, recurring, nightmares, or exciting, or highly sexual. We all have dreams. But how often do you pay attention to your dream? How often do you legitimize it? How often do you share it? And did you know that dreams are a huge, rich source of connection with your psyche, with the psyche? That's why this week it was an absolute pleasure to talk to Debbie Ford, who's a psychotherapist who specializes in dream therapy. Debbie explained just exactly what dreams are and what they are in relation to the psyche, and gave us a rough idea of the underlying dynamics of how they work and how beautifully subjective they are. She also gave an insight into how she goes about doing therapy and gave some wonderful examples just to really set some context of how we can begin to interpret and work with dreams. We also had a great discussion on a bigger level of what she's beginning to see across dreams at this time in a COVID period, highly disrupted period. This is a truly subtle, beautiful, yet really powerful conversation with a lady who's really amazing at holding space for something that we so often sweep over or put to one side. And she explains why our egos do that. So I'm sure you'll enjoy Debbie. Hello and welcome back to WA Real. I'm your host, Bryn Edwards. Today I have the great pleasure of talking to Debbie Ford. Debbie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hi, Bryn.
Super. And thank you very much for giving me some time and sitting here in your wonderful home.
Pleasure.
So I was really keen to talk to you because I wanted to continue what has been almost like this nice rich thread of inquiry into the deeper dives into psyche. And I particularly wanted to talk to you because of your work with dreams as a psychotherapist.
Yeah.
So I guess the first real question I have for you is, let's start at the start. What are dreams? and why do we dream? I've spoken to a sleep expert before,
yes.
And so she talked about the whole REM function and looked at it from a very technical point of view. But from your psychotherapy, deeper psychodynamic point of view, what are dreams?
Well, dreams for me as a psychotherapist are such a gift. They're a gift from psyche, because when a client comes to see me, I often say to them before their first appointment, "Oh, do you dream?" just out of interest. And they'll say, "Oh, no, I haven't dreamt for years." So we make the appointment and they come in and we're talking and, just getting to know each other. And then all of a sudden the client will say, "Oh my God, I had a dream last night." And it's like, thank you. And then we get some real material from psyche.
Right.
So the dream is like a message, and it is a message that is mysterious. It is definitely mysterious because we have an ego that says, I don't want to be connected to this inner world, this psyche, this stuff that's unconscious to me, because I'm the ego. I am who I think I am, and I'm showing the world who I am.
Yes.
And I'm not interested in this message. Now, sometimes the message will be like a nightmare. It'll be recurring. It'll be really significant. It's so significant that psyche's really making sure that the client or the person, the dreamer, gets the message. But we have this ego that's going, not interested. So repression comes in,
right.
And the ego does what it does best, really, is repress. So we get into this cycle. So that's the joy of coming to therapy, is that I'm the therapist, the psychotherapist, especially where I'm psychoanalytically trained. So, our training is Freud and Jung. So we are like the translators. So we work with our intuition, we work cognitively, we work symbolically. So we work with everything the most important thing we work with is the client. So they come with this rich, hidden information that they have no idea about. They don't understand what this means. Sometimes psyche will give them a really basic, oh, I get that. And it's so basic that, yeah, you got that, that's awesome. But mostly it is more cryptic. It's more, it's metaphor, it's a different language to our everyday language, because the unconscious needs to trick the ego from doing its job.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does. I suppose just to clarify for somebody who's come into this conversation because they've seen the title, Dreams.
Dreams, yeah.
I mentioned the word psyche. For you, when we say, these are messages from psyche, what are we actually meaning there? Are we talking individual consciousness, or are we going even deeper into the world of collective unconscious?
Both.
Right.
Absolutely both. So psyche, that we call psyche, is our unconscious, which is the part of us that we have no access to other than through our dreams and through our language. Occasionally we might make a slip, as Freud would say, a Freudian slip, and there's a little message in that. But so we have a personal unconscious, which is our own story, our own internal narrative.
Yes.
But we also have access to the whole, to the collective. So we have access to everything that is going on unconsciously with it, but with man, it is just amazing, because there are major archetypes in the collective unconscious, and it's fascinating, because we can tell when we get a collective dream. And I've had some clients over COVID who have had collective archetypal
I'm going to
dreams.
ask you about this in a bit.
Okay, all right, because it's kind of, it's intriguing.
Yes, and one, that really tips into a question we would definitely go there.
So did that answer your question?
So it's very much this, our unconscious, the unknown or unseen parts of ourselves, that are not just ourselves, but singular, ourselves, plural as well. And I suppose I'm going to ask you a question in a bit about how we differentiate between the two as well. But I guess listening to what you're saying is that dreams and slips are a very rich source of connection to this deeper unknown world, and that I suppose one of the really the best adjective I can come up with at the moment is one of the most beautiful things about what you do is that you're actually holding space for something that can so easily be just like, oh, I had a weird dream last night, or I had a dream I didn't really like.
Yes.
And then that's probably as much thought as most people will give their dreams.
Yes,
And I guess listening to what you're saying about, there's this almost tension between the ego of I've got centre stage, I'm the person, I'm the function of this person that's running the show and out on the stage and this, that and the other. That, there's this rich internal world, and it's bridging a gap between the two of them.
It is,
Which could only lead, as I've found in previous podcasts, to greater integration of our total self.
Yes, and that's kind of that is Psyche's goal, is this unconscious drive for wholeness. So for wholeness to happen, that includes our conscious self and our very large unconscious self.
Yes.
So, but because there's the tension between what we're conscious of, which is a teeny, teeny amount, and this massive unconscious, there's this drive within psyche to balance, so that this tension of opposites and the tension between consciousness and unconsciousness.
Usually opposites.
Yes, it is. So the dream helps to regulate this.
Yes.
So for people who don't get this message, so just for ordinary dreamers, that's why keeping a dream journal, or even talking about your dream, doesn't have to be to a therapist, but just giving voice to it.
Legitimise.
Yes. Oh wow, I don't know what that was about, but hey, last night I dreamt that whatever.
And I guess the more, like I said, the ego takes centre stage and is quick to pass off these dreams and messages. I suppose hence why dreams will become more and more and more vivid to somebody if they're not necessarily picking up what psyche's putting down.
Yes. And psyche will, if it's really important, which generally it is, psyche will find another way. So, and sometimes, psyche has a bit of a sense of humour. I remember a client once who, if I mention clients, the only client material I will use are from clients long ago. And also, and those clients have given me permission to use their dream material.
Generically and anonymously.
And change their details. But
so nobody out there is thinking that,
that sounds like my dream.
Come and chat to Debbie and then she's going to tell the world.
No,
that's crystal.
Yes. So this client long ago, the first dream was too mysterious for her to get, and she had so many defences in place. But the next dream, which woke her up with such a start, was this giraffe, just a symbolic giraffe that had his head caught. And it was like it was in a big fence, and it was in a jungle, and she woke up terribly stressed because this poor giraffe was stuck by being not free. So we talked about her associations, because that's what we do as therapists. This is the client's dream. It's not my associations, it's the client's associations. So her associations were immediately, well, it's stuck, and it's black and white, it's black and white. Giraffes are black and white. And it's like, yeah. So wonder, what does that mean to you, black and white? And she goes, well, I've always been told that I have no grey in my life, that it's black or white. And I said, so how does that work for you, being black and white? And she said, well, that's why I'm here, I'm stuck. So it was like, thank you, Psyche. Yeah, so simple. But the first dream Psyche gave us was so difficult and so complicated that she couldn't see that. Her ego was so defended and so clever at making sure that she didn't get this. But it was fine, because once we recognised that she was stuck, and we needed to talk about her fear of the grey, which is the unknown, which is where that's our unconscious, where the ego doesn't want to go. So it was like this beautiful message of exactly why she was there.
I think one of the, because I read a couple of books about dreams quite a while ago when I first came across the work of, well, when I first properly deep dive and felt drawn to deep dive into the world of Carl Jung and working with the unconscious and the psychic. I think one of the first points, I just want to clarify that with you, that I got across, and it sounds really simple, but it's really, really important, is that psyche doesn't necessarily talk in terms of thou shalt do this. No. It comes up with symbols and like situations which are personally relevant to the individual. So they're so very subjective. Hence why going on Google and going, I had a dream of a black raven. What does that mean? Black raven means death in the family. Shit, someone's going to die in the family. No. And it's really, really important. And I guess I'm sure my mum and dad won't mind me sharing this story because they listen to this, and I often get phone calls from them. I go, why did you? But this will make you laugh. And it saved
it saved a morning. So my parents live in the UK, and they came across several years, and we were on a road trip, and we were sort of stopping on a campsite, living in close environment, the three of us. And one morning, Mum woke up. She was in a very strange mood, and she was being very funny with Dad. And we were still in that sort of monging around, wearing pajamas, having a cup of tea state. And I looked at her and went, "What's up?" And she goes, "Well, I've had this vivid dream, and I was at this function with your dad, and then your dad suddenly started talking to this woman, and then I realised your dad and this woman were having an affair, and then they talked to me, and then they were saying they were going, and then they just left." And she was being really funny with Dad.
Paranoid.
And all Dad had done was woke up that morning.
Yep.
And yet he had dream cheated on Mum, right?
Yes.
Luckily, I'd read this book, a couple of books beforehand, and I said, "Well, look, Mum, you've got to double back out of this.
Yeah.
Like, it's not Dad himself.
No.
What does Dad represent to you? What was going on with this other woman? What was the dynamics of what was going on?"
Yep.
And she suddenly went, "Oh." Fast forward to tea, like later in the afternoon, and she went for a long walk along the beach and asked herself these questions. Came back and suddenly went, "I've worked it out."
Yes.
Like, and it goes, it's this, this, and this.
Yes. Yep.
And I was like, wow. And then Dad looked at me and went, "Thank you very much."
Yes.
He was in trouble for doing nothing.
Phew.
But you know, it's a fun little anecdote. But the point is that going back to my point, psyche doesn't necessarily talk in like specific language. Thou shalt do this. No. It is up to you to do the work to build that relationship and unpick the meaning. That is correct, isn't it?
It is correct, but that's where we have the challenge because of the ego.
Right.
The ego is like the conductor of the orchestra. You know, the ego's deciding, yes, I like that. And anything that is imperfect or that the ego is not impressed with, oh no, we just repress that, we get rid of that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Deny that.
So yes, so the language that will come up will be, and it will be different. It won't be our language. So it's metaphor, it's myth. It is language about, like with your mum, it's about the masculine and the feminine in her case, because it's showing us that her internal masculine and feminine, that anima and animus, so in the feminine that's the animus, that's her internal masculine. So we have an imbalance because the masculine in her is getting a bit powerful, and the feminine is getting a bit needy. So there's this, so Dad's cheating on Mum, well, it's her internal masculine that is not actually content to just bring forth all the fantastic things that the masculine can bring. You know, the masculine for all of us, you as a man, but for me as a woman, my internal masculine, it helps me make decisions. It's linear and logical and problem solving. Fantastic to have a language and a dialogue with your internal contrasexual figure. So there was something going on within Mum that was just slightly out of balance because the masculine was a bit needy, you know, a bit wanting, a bit more power, a bit more control.
Yes,
because
drawing attention to it.
Yes, and unfaithfulness is always about control. So it's, you know, so do you see, Mum will have found her way of dealing with it. Dad's like, phew, I'm off the hook. That was close. I did nothing.
For doing nothing other than just waking up.
Yes, that's right. So you know, our normal response is to project our ego's interpretation onto Dad and say, oh, you know. Yeah. So poor Dad, he cops it. But it's actually, the dream is mostly about, it's mostly subjective, not objective.
So I guess it's interesting because, and like I said, we'll come into this in a bit, you've mentioned things like animus and anima.
Yeah.
So I imagine within dream therapy, there's this balance between finding out what is the subjective meaning, yet also looking for these archetypal structures that are at play in the dreams. Is that correct?
Yes, it is correct, yes.
So the working out what the subjective meaning, I imagine, would be sort of continued gentle questioning of, so what does that mean for you? And
yes.
has there been a time when a giraffe has turned up in your life?
Yes.
And what was that situation? And what does that represent to you?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. But thinking of that, the language with the masculine and the feminine, when it comes as an archetype, it's a bit like when shadow comes into our dream. It's very connected to emotionality. So we can, when we have a dream about shadow, about, that is about what the ego has well repressed.
Yep.
And we learn to repress from
We
little,
are
right from our...
world-class at it.
We are. And it just comes from, as Robert Bly beautifully says, we start from being little tiny babies to little children, and whenever mum and dad go, oh, I don't like that, that's naughty, don't do that. Oh, that gets put in the little invisible bag that the little child starts carrying around.
Yes.
So we have this, we learn when people, are displeased with us, we go, oh, we can't do that. So we post it into our little invisible bag.
We start to delineate.
Yes, yep. So, and I remember my first dream that I was aware of as shadow. I was like, oh, that's horrible, but when you get to know your shadow, it's fantastic because you expand a bit.
Yes.
Yes, 'cause,
Yes, I guess as I've come to experientially learn that it's not so much a place to be feared, but a place that's just not had light shone upon it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. And we all have shadow, and the challenge is to get to know our own shadow rather than to project it, because if we think of collectively, we've just had this Black Lives Matter global experience of this projection of shadow. So we've found something to project it onto, and
that's got a hook.
It's got a hook, and in we go. And globally, it's a nice little example of the collective unconscious.
Nice little example.
Yes.
Not a big one. But,
yes, and not so nice.
And not so nice.
No,
but it's just an example. But it is nice.
Well,
depending on the level you want to look at it. If you're in it, it's not.
Yes, no.
But it's necessary.
It is, and it's bringing about change.
Yes.
Which is wonderful.
So within that balance of, there is this subjective exploration of the meaning, yet there are archetypal structures. So you've now introduced shadow and animus and anima. What are there sort of, how do I put it? Whilst not wanting to go straight to the example I gave you, like Black Raven in Google,
yep.
Are there sort of characteristics of the various archetypes that play out that you can sort of share from your knowledge, so you sort of go, this sort of dream may well be your shadow, this sort of thing might characteristic might be your animus or anima,
right? Well,
without
and
like I said, I'm really delicate to not turn this into Debbie says.
Yes.
But so we've caveated that.
Yes, we have. Yes, thank you.
But at the same time, given your experience of doing this over many, many years, surely there are certain things you start to see.
There are certain things you start to see, and as a therapist, I have to be really careful that I don't get too excited about. Oh yes, I know what that is. That's your shadow.
Yeah.
And because that's not helpful, because it's most important for the client to actually come to their own meaning and hence consciousness. But as a little guide that shines the light in the darkness, there are certain, like if we stick with shadow, there are certain occurrences. Like for my shadow, it was a woman, so it's the same gender as me, and it's usually a person of opposite colouring. So in my shadow, my woman was brunette. So
Right.
she was a brown-haired woman. So shadows usually are same gender. But the shadow can also come in the form of an animal.
Right.
Yeah, so that's fascinating. Because animals are instinctual, and so we can get
And I suppose we suppress many instinctual
we
urges.
do, yes we do, and so dreaming of an animal, I immediately go to that, what Google would probably say. I've never Googled it, but animals are fairly instinctual, loyal. So I will have those. I'll hold those associations in
Probably
my
have
mind.
a collective sort
Yes,
of feeling
definitely.
for it.
Yeah, yeah, yes. So, and a myth. I'm just thinking now of when psyche gives us a myth in our dream, there will be big emotionality. It's a little bit like meeting shadow. It's a little bit like a major archetype, because it is a major archetype. But it's psyche's way of saying, you've really got to get this. I'm really going to make sure you get this. This is going to make your life so much better.
I've got to make this as powerful as possible.
Absolutely. And it brings to mind a dream of one of my clients many years ago. And in her dream, I won't give you the whole dream, but the significant part of the dream was that she was in this two-story house, and upstairs was this very fragile cello player, a beautiful red-headed, white-skinned cello player, thin and elegant and delicate. In that room next door to this cello player was Elizabeth Joly, the West Australian writer, who unfortunately is no longer with us, but she was in the room next door. And the dreamer, she's neither of those women, but she's both of those women. So she's watching this play out, and then all of a sudden, on the balcony, there's French doors out to the balcony, she hears this noise. Both women ignore this noise. They're just completely absorbed in their world. And there is this beautiful male bird figure covered in white feathers. And he's bashing the door, the French doors. Let me in. He's not saying that, but that's what he's wanting. He's wanting to get into psyche.
Right.
And this woke the dreamer up. And luckily she had it the night before. We'd actually been working together weekly, and we'd had some significant dreams, but nothing that was getting to the actual issue. And so she came into therapy. Oh my God, I've had this strange nightmare. Oh, I feel so scared. There's this bird-like man trying to get in. And so we talked around it, and I was able to show her off the shelf. I found this book that had Eros, a picture of Eros, that she looks and goes, oh man, that's like what was at my door. And it's like, well, how would that be to open the door and let Eros in? How would it be if we welcomed the masculine into this world where the feminine, one part's too fragile, one part is so engrossed in writing and her own narrative? How would that be? So we did some work on welcoming Eros in, because the first reason she came to therapy was that she was lonely. She was a lawyer, a busy woman, very much engaged in writing and very much embodying the Elizabeth Jolie part of herself. The fragile part was definitely repressed. But there was this mythological figure. You know, Eros is the life drive, it's love, it's, you know, and it's masculine. Her psyche up until this point, she's been uninvolved or unaware of the masculine. So this was life-changing for this girl through an archetypal myth of Eros.
Wow.
It was joyful, it was so joyful. And it was, you know, it's one of those moments as a therapist where you go, thank you, Psyche. That is, you know, Psyche wants to heal. Psyche wants for us to balance.
Yes.
And it's just so joyful when you see the client go, I get it. Okay.
Yeah.
This is my dream. This is part of my unconscious. And now it's coming up to my consciousness.
Yes.
It's such a gift.
And I'm connected to that.
Absolutely.
And it is benevolent.
Yep. Yep.
And even what's below that collectively
Yes. Yep.
is benevolent
Yes.
as well.
Yep. And how benevolent is love, and how important is love for self, love for other, you know, love for something bigger than us. It is, it's an ingredient that we can all have access to. And if we did, it would be a much happier world.
Yeah. It's beautiful listening to that. And you know, it reconfirms, and I really feel that part of why I find exploring this so important in this podcast is that there is this untapped, great wealth of benevolent force that wants to work with us and stop us from feeling so isolated, separated, and making life so difficult.
Absolutely. And it's not that, you know, we're trying to say, well, don't suffer, because the growth comes from suffering, but it's like, but, you know, we're meant to be in relationship. And if we can just by getting in touch with our internal world, when we're less isolated. Yeah.
In a world that's been dominated by the sort of post-enlightenment rationalisation of science and measuring things, which has been awesome.
Yes, has.
You know, I had an operation just 2 weeks ago on my wrist, and that's thanks to medicine and
yes,
what have
it
you.
is. Yep.
And it's not necessarily throwing that out, but it's also reintroducing and reincorporating our relationship with our interior.
Yes. And it's our relationship with our physical body as well, because you know, they're all intertwined. You know, psyche and soma, we're all one.
Yes.
And, you know, even our bodily language, sometimes dreams will give us messages about what we're doing wrong in our body. I once had a dream, I had the same dream twice. The first time I dreamt it, it was before I'd started studying psychotherapy. It occurred just before midlife, so, you know, sort of quite early on. And in the dream, it was a long dream, but I had an experience that I didn't know was of self. So there was a central
When you say of self.
Of self.
Do you mean?
Of my inner unconscious.
Yes.
Part of the collective.
So that's
part
capital
of
T, capital S.
Yes. Part
self.
of my own internal unconscious self. So personal and collective. In this wise old man in white robes was giving me this book to read. And it was this heavy book, and I was so in awe of seeing this wise man. Oh my God, I'm having a visitation from this beautiful wise man. And he shows me this book, and I looked, and it's like, oh, I can't read it. It's all written in Sanskrit. And I was like, oh. And I wake up so sad because I know I'm so close to something, but it's, I can't decipher it. I can't get the code of what this means. I have no idea. So I don't think about the dream again. And then when I'm probably in about my 4th or 5th year of studying psychotherapy, I have the dream again. And the wise man appears again, once again in an epic, a long, laborious dream. And I'm traveling, and he appears, this white old-haired man. He looks sort of Indian. It's the same man in his white robes, and he's holding the book, and I'm like, oh my God, am I going to get it? And I get it, and I'm so, and I look, and it's written, I can read it, and it says, if you let go, heaven will be yours. And I wake up like, man, if I let go, heaven will be mine. What does that mean? What am I holding on to? I'm not holding on to anything. I'm in my own training analysis. I've done all these years of study. I'm like, what am I holding on to? But there was something I was holding on to in my body that I was not really conscious of. But it gave me a clue to start to look inwards, not just at this wise man, who was part of me, listening to my masculine wisdom, but heaven could be mine. I mean, man, heaven on earth, it can't be better than that. So it was an amazing dream. And that was archetypal. Was an experience of self, fleeting, because what happens is you wake up and then the ego comes in and goes, well, now I'm now started my practice. I'm like a 5th year, I'm kind of out there, and I'm still, doing the study and whatever. So the ego comes in and goes, well, that wasn't that great, it's not that good, Ego doesn't want me to run with this. There's part of me that has just experienced something really deep within myself. Ego doesn't want to go there. No.
Pass it off.
Pass it off. So it took many years. It actually took me to physically get ill when I realized that if I didn't learn to let go, then I wasn't going to get what I got out of having breast cancer, which has been an amazing journey. But it is to get in touch with that gratitude, and also that significant message that we're just a spiritual being in a human body. The body's just the body. We're something else. So I learnt to let go really, really, because I had to. A year of chemo, you don't just, if you don't let go, if you hold on to that, man, I don't think you're going to make it.
What was it you actually had to let go of?
Fear.
Right.
Absolute fear.
Of? Or was it just fearful?
No. It was fear of the masculine outside of myself. I had projected that fear onto onto men. And because I had a scary dad, beautiful father, but kind of scary, came back from the Second World War, having been a bomber pilot and used to bombing. And I hadn't actually got to work and understand, work with and know my own masculine, because I was afraid of that. So, and it was through dreams that my masculine, I really, really got it then, because I had this fantastic dream. Is this on track here?
Yeah.
Am I going off? Okay.
No.
So another recurring...
Everything's on track.
Everything's on track.
WA.
And absolutely. And psyche's always on track by being off track.
This is what I'm learning through doing the
Yes,
podcast.
absolutely. So...
That was your ego then, wasn't it? I think I'm getting the hang of it.
Yeah. So my first time I dreamt of the masculine was about the same time the same time as I had the dream of the wise man holding me the book, the wise book that I couldn't read. At that same time, I had this dream where I was searching for this man, and in the dream it was my partner. So I'm searching and searching, and I go into this room and there he is, and I call out to him, "Oh, there you are, stand up." And I look at him and he's a dwarf. Now my partner wasn't a dwarf, was a tall, handsome man. He was a dwarf in my dream, and I woke up and it's like, oh, that's so sad. Oh, my husband's a dwarf. Oh, well, that's pre-psychotherapy. So I don't really do anything with that dream. But
because you're literally interpreting this.
Absolutely. And I am thinking it's about him. Well, yes, we're having struggles at the moment. Of course, he's not standing up. I want him to stand up. He's letting me down. So I'm projecting it all onto him. So later, when I have this dream, the relationship is actually, it's petered out. It's in taking its last breath. I have this dream where I'm going on this journey and I'm at the airport, and in fact, I'm going off to America. And in the dream, there's this man that's coming to meet me. He's going to travel with me. And he's a teacher. He's all these things that I've made up in my mind that this man is. And there he is, and we're at the airport, and I can see him, and I'm waving to him. And once again, I say to him, stand up. He's a dwarf. And it's like, what the fuck? Excuse me.
That's fine.
He's a dwarf. The dwarf's come back. And it's my masculine. I know when I wake up, oh my God, it's not about the other. This is about my masculine. This is now about me. I don't need to be afraid. I just need to understand that I have kept my masculine dwarfed. I've kept him little because it's been easier to let the masculine in relationship carry that. Because I'm good at the feminine. I'm really good at nurturing and being intuitive and, creative. I'm good at all that. But do I have permission to be strong and in touch with my masculine? No. But I have now. Because I've now got it. When I've woken up, I've gone, okay, I get this. I really get this. So that's an example of this imbalance of our internal contrasexual figures and how big it takes a dream to make you get it, and how sometimes it takes, like both those examples, I've had the dream twice. Now, you know, I'm a little bit slow, but it's, I've got it.
I'm sure people out there have had it 4 or 5 times.
Well, a lot of people have had recurring nightmares. Psyche will keep recurring, will keep giving you in a different form the message until you get it. Now, Psyche knew I was close with both these because Psyche gave me wisdom in a book, masculinity in a dwarf, and me asking him to stand up. Stand up. And I'm thinking it's about the other. It's actually not about the other. It's about me. What a gift.
Which goes back to
Yes.
demonstrating one of the things I asked you to clarify
Yes.
right at the start,
Yes.
that this is all very symbolic and personal meaning.
Totally.
And not to be projecting them.
No, and not to Google what does the dwarf mean.
Yes.
Because I'm sure, I mean, I've never Googled it, but I am sure that there's some weird
Oh,
explanation.
yeah,
I bet.
Yeah.
But for my story, it's about the use of the word dwarf, dwarfed.
And then what that construct or schema actually means for Debbie.
Yes. Yep.
It must have, when you started your psychotherapy training,
Yes. Yep.
was it with the intent of going into dreams?
No, not at all.
That must have been quite a turn, quite a thing, because I imagine even within the world of, you know, providing therapy, psychotherapy, you know, staying in the world of CBT and things like that, nice, safe, easy ground, people know about that.
Yes, they do.
Everyone's cool, including clients as well,
Yep.
and potential clients. But to go to dreams, to start to go down to the depths that we're talking about now, the sort of depths that I've been exploring now, now we're into scary shit.
We are.
We're into the world of Jung and Freud, which means we've got to read some heavy books. We've got to, you know, hold concentration and read very engaging sentences and paragraphs to understand nuance. It's not reduced.
No.
It's very nuanced. It's very, very fine.
It
and
is.
very subtle. So, what made you go from almost like the clear-cut aspects of the world of psychotherapy to the, no, we're going to go into dreams?
Well,
Because that's a big...
It's, yes. But you see, I still do the other.
Yeah.
If people... But Psyche always gives us dreams. So it's kind of, you know...
I love it how you say Psyche gives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Psyche does. Yeah, I certainly had no intention at the beginning of working with dreams, and I'd had my own therapy before I started studying, because it was out of my own therapy that I realised that, and my dream, the therapist I saw, we didn't actually do dream work. You know, she was a psychodynamic, PhD, CBT, and just what I needed at that time to make sense of my life.
Yes.
That was great. But then I
Get
knew...
this layer sorted before we start
exactly.
going into the next layer and the next layer.
But once I started to look into this, the unconscious, wow, this is something else. This is where I want to dwell. I want to go where we don't dwell.
Yes.
So it was clear to me once I started my practice, and I'd worked out the ingredients of how to do this, which took a little while because I started out with desire. I started out wanting my clients to get better, which I always do. I love my clients. But I wanted to give them the answer. Oh, I know what this is. You know? Oh, yeah. I know.
So you can play out. So you can play out the saviour archetype.
Yes, yeah. So I don't want to do that.
No.
So it takes me a little while to get that. And then when I get it, it's like, okay, okay, I can want another example of letting go. Just sit with, just be with, just trust. And psyche will do the rest.
It's interesting you say that. It's almost like the little journey I've gone on with the podcast where in the first 10, 20, 30, 40 episodes, I knew what I wanted it to go like and sound like and this, that and the other. And then after a period of time, you just let go and it's like, you know, as most people know, I've got a mind map, but after that, we'll go where psyche goes.
Yes, absolutely. And psyche won't come, really, I don't think, until you're ready. It sounds bizarre, but...
And it's safe.
And it's safe. It's a little bit like seeing clients that have trauma in their story. And a lot of clients have, you know, most of us have experienced some sort of trauma. But serious trauma, it takes the relationship to develop before psyche will actually start to allow us to work with actually what happens in trauma, which is about splitting. So it's the relationship that contains and allows the two of us to get in sync, just like the mother and the infant get in sync in the dyad. We get to be able to be safe in that holding.
Yes.
And be good enough. That's one of the things I learned in my training, is that you just have to be good enough. You know, you don't have to be the best. You don't have to be like for me to say, oh, I get this. I know what this is about.
Yeah. Look at me, look at me.
Yeah. No, it's actually not about me at all. But it takes a while to get to trust that. And that comes from myself, from my own inner world, but it also comes within the dynamic of the two of us and our psyches meeting.
Do you ever get the sense, because whether you probably know or not is up for debate, but do you ever get the sense sometimes when you're working with a client and they're diving into this rich material that's been provided by psyche, and so I can imagine there'll be times when almost like the defenses just start to peel away and peel away and peel away as you get closer and closer and closer to the truth.
Yep.
Do you ever get the sense that you are actually listening directly to psyche at times and you almost feel it? Does that make sense?
It does. And there are times when I'm really aware of that. And it's funny because my first career was a nurse. Yes, I know what you're saying. My first career was a nurse. So I trained as a children's nurse and I was a registered nurse for 10 years. So whether that prepared me or not, but I used to get I have over the years had a lot of clients that come to therapy to see me because they're dying. Now, I don't know whether that's because I have sat with people and nursed people who actually do die before I was a therapist. But then as a therapist, I started to get clients being referred in who were diagnosed with illness and who came because they were dying. With those clients, we always work with the dream, and I can tell you that the closer we get to death, the more direct I'm working with psyche.
Because the stories and bullshit of life,
it all just peels
away.
It totally does, Bryn. It peels away, and the spirit is already starting to move. So the spirit's already starting to make its next crossing, its next journey.
Right.
And because that doesn't frighten me, because I've been a nurse, and now because I've had breast cancer and I've been there, I've been afraid that I was going to die. I'm not afraid of that anymore. But even before my breast cancer, I wasn't when these clients would come in, I was not afraid. Something about the authenticity of psyche and the connection, that deep connection of my internal world with the client's internal world, because all this other stuff is gone now, all this ego stuff quickly gets...
All the clay man that's been constructed.
Absolutely.
Is now...
Yep. Wow. So we're getting right down to what really, really matters. And it's such an honour to sit with people who trust me to guide them through the last months of their life. And I use whatever I intuitively feel psyche wants. Often it's just a Buddhist type meditation of allowing ourselves to follow the light, practicing following the light, and allowing ourselves to let go of our physical being and trusting that if you follow the light, well, heaven will be yours.
Yeah.
Now, that is such a gift to be able to do that with people. I can't tell you, it nearly makes me moved, because it has just been astounding. And it's the power of psyche, because one client...
So I suppose there's almost like an inner gauge and a compass physically within you that now feels that.
Oh, absolutely.
So when you get glimpses of it with clients, because you dial back from the close to death experience, happening, not experience.
Yes,
it's not an experience, it's a happening.
It's a happening.
It takes a pretty special concoction of events to actually get people to drop all those defences earlier than that.
Yeah. Near-death
experience, end of relationship, end of job, something really big. Or the realisation that a story you've been telling yourself has come to an end. I often say, what is it called, WA real? There's nothing more real than an ending.
No.
And we talk about the ending of stories a lot.
Yes.
So I guess when that little window opens up, I suppose you've got quite a physical gauge for it now.
I have, yes. And I think I've kind of always had it. I remember having it as a nurse. So I kind of, But the joyful thing is that the dreams of these clients is all about how they're disconnecting from their body. And they start to dream of observing themselves outside of their body. So that's when we know that crossing's getting really close now.
Yes.
Yeah. And the power, one more comment on this.
Yeah.
The power of the mind and the body. This one client I'm thinking of, he was in hospital. We had a session the day before he crossed over. He said to me, I know when I'm going to die. I don't want my wife and my little boy to be here. He said, I'm going to cross over when she goes to pick him up. It's the only window I have. Well, when his wife rang me, I said, oh, what time did he die? Oh, she said it was about, I don't know, she said about 2:45, 5 to 3.
Then the school time.
And I said, that man, what a gift for you. And she said, what do you mean? And I said, he didn't want you to suffer anymore. He didn't want you to be there when he crossed over. Joy. How kind. He was the most beautiful man, but how kind and how incredible that psyche and the physical body, how they're linked to be able to do that, to let go and do it for another. I mean, what a capacity.
Wow.
Yeah, so beautiful. And see why I love being a therapist.
Yeah, hugely. Going back to something we touched on earlier on.
Yep.
Right at the start is, if we sort of come out of the individual analysis that you do, and now we start to look at it almost at a meta level,
Yep.
across what you're seeing across clients.
Yep.
Because I always find this fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
I always find this fascinating question to ask anyone who provides any sort of service or therapy or offering to others. It's quite interesting to see if they have an answer for this, whether they think about it or not. But are there similarities, or are there, not in content, but possibly messages that you are starting to experience? Because if we had had this conversation probably 12 months ago, it would have been easy for you to go, yeah, well, you know, maybe this, that, and the other. And anybody who's watching this would probably go, okay, that's kind of interesting. But we're now global pandemic, all this sort of stuff. You know, these traumatic events that are shared and inescapable.
Yep. Yep.
One of the, just as an aside, one of the things I enjoy doing from time to time is asking people, you know, what? Oh, you're talking about the pandemic, right? just try and drop a bit of normality into stuff, but or disrupt it. So now we have more of this shared experience. And I get the impression, certainly from speaking to different guests and different people outside of the podcast, that where I would listen to people's stories and they would be on their own individual journeys, it feels more collectively synced up.
Definitely.
Are there certain things that you're experiencing at a meta level of the dreams of clients and people that you talk to?
Yeah. Yeah, nice question, Bryn. One of the archetypes that has come into people's dreaming that I've noticed is has been big over the last sort of 9 months is the occurrence of the serpent, the snake in people's dreams.
Wow.
Now, for me, when I think of the serpent, and when I have dreamt of the serpent only once, but it was definitely at a time of me shedding my skin, of transformation, of the phallus, of the masculine in me, at a time, I think I'm amazed at how many clients are giving me dreams that are coming, I think, collectively. And to me, they offer hope. But I don't usually share that level with my client. But in my psyche, I feel, not that I can feel in my psyche, I feel from, I think that there is some method in it, not method, but something that we are collectively unconscious of that I think is going to transform us out of this darkness. But maybe we're just still in the, but it's such a, like that, this is the $1 million question. But this is what I've noticed. You've asked me what I've observed.
Yep.
One of the clients, no, he's not a client, he's a friend, and he won't mind me sharing this. He shared that his dream was he had this big brown snake in his garden, and it was in the lavender patch. I mean, how beautiful is that? I mean, there's snakes in the lavender patch. I mean, the dream is very big, and that's why he rang me. He's like, what's going on? But just that image of, you know, the holistic value of lavender, you know, a whole patch of lavender, and there's the brown snake. Gorgeous. But yeah, and that friend is definitely in the process of transformation.
Yeah.
And healing. And healing.
Because I sort of posed a similar question or inquired about this at this level because I find it interesting to speak to those who deal with more of the depths of psyche, whether there is that meta level of observation.
Yeah.
And, you know, for me, this whole conversation has been extraordinarily hopeful just by actually sitting back and listening to, well, you know, psyche's done this at an individual level and this, that, and the other. So the next level of questioning for me is almost like, are we seeing this collectively? And more I, you know, speaking to yourself, speaking to Bryn several weeks ago, I get the sense that there is. Now, this is not this sort of shallow false hope of, well, I used to operate out of this persona. That's degrading now, so I'm going to bypass my way across the depth work into another persona.
Yes,
You know, and we've all seen that. You know.
It's very appealing.
Yeah, it's very very easy, very appealing to do, very quick to do.
Yes,
you know,
excellent.
People who've there's hundreds of examples of, you know, people like nipping from one persona to another. But this is actually into the depths, and then what comes out will be so beautiful and most likely so required, because I think at a deep level, well, most people, particularly in Western Australia, have a level of comfort. You know, we're sitting in a lovely house. Most of us know that we're not doing it as well as we could do.
No, we're not.
There's a lot of trauma. There is a lot of wounding that we still carry around and play out. And those wounds do bleed out across everybody around us, particularly the ones we love.
Yeah.
And that, you know, even as groups we do that and hold group trauma, and probably as a collective we hold collective trauma.
Yeah.
And this is all playing out, and it is necessary to drop back into that darkness in order to move forwards, which is like a real higher order or higher level hope than some sort of, oh, someone's going to come in and save me. No. Someone's not going to come and save you.
No.
There is a bigger force that will move us from one place to another, and it will be a tricky ride. But
But as long as we hold tight and we allow ourselves to sit in it.
Hold tight to what?
To
because we've
trust.
already talked about let go. And
no, yes, okay. But we hold
tight to letting go.
Hold tight to the idea that this is something bigger than us. So if we allow ourselves to accept that no one's going to rescue us, that we take responsibility for ourselves, and we be assertive, and
I think, sorry, go on.
No.
And I think also there's this transcending the hubris of man. And recognizing that this change, we're not going to manage it.
No.
In fact, if anything, it's going to manage us.
It is. That's why I'm holding tight, really, because it's kind of, we're going on it. We're not taking ourselves. This is taking us.
Yeah. It's like the proverbial roller coaster.
It is.
You know, as soon as that bar comes down and you go, psh, off you go. You ain't controlling it. So if somebody's been listening to this and they want to start engaging with their dreams, short of coming to see you, what's some of the simple and basic things that they can start to do?
Okay. Well,
to tap into this great wealth
is, first of all, to have a dream journal or a little pad by your bed, bedside table, pen. Before you go to sleep, you say to yourself, just gently, quietly, I'd really like to remember my dream. And if you say that every night for 2 weeks, just gently, I'd really like to remember my dream, it sets the intention, and you will start to dream. This is if you're not already dreaming. Most people are dreaming. They say we have 5 to 6 dreams a night.
Yes.
So it's just a matter of being conscious and scribble down. If you wake up and it's like, oh my God, that I'm dreaming, scribble it down, try and go back to sleep. If not, as soon as you wake up, write it down, date it, give it a title, don't try and analyse it. Just write it down.
Yes.
Just get it out.
Capture the salient points.
Yep. So go with what comes up, what the symbols are, what, if there's any movement in the dream, are you running, are you swimming, are you drowning? You know, go with, write down those. Write down the people. Who are they? You know, is that me? Would I do that? What if that's me? Why am I drowning? You know, why am I in the ocean? Which is, why am I deep in psyche? So it's just jotting these things down, and all of a sudden you're kind of cooking. You know, there's a bit of alchemy happening. Yep. And you'll start to get some dreams. And that's very exciting.
That's awesome. What have you learned about yourself since working with dreams?
Oh.
On a big...
So much.
Yeah.
So much. Quite a lot of, like, I don't really like that. So getting to know my shadow's been quite big, because I was very good at projecting that, you know. So I've learnt about suffering rather than causing suffering, especially with men. Oh gosh, I've learnt so much. I've learnt so much. And I'm nowhere near knowing anything. It's just so crazy about it. It's at how it is. But I'm in process. You know, the process of individuation is happening.
Yeah.
As we're all in process.
All in it.
And we're all seeking, whether we're conscious or not, we're all seeking wholeness. And psyche's there to help. Wants to heal us, wants to balance. We've got this unbelievable resource in us, deep within us. We just have to listen.
Wow. The last question I asked my guys.
Yes.
Hypothetical one, but I always find it particularly interesting. Is if you could upload a single question into the collective consciousness, and everyone was to spend 7 to 10 minutes just deeply contemplating the answer to that question, what would it be?
What are you so afraid of? That's my question. You know, we're all afraid at some level. And what is it? It's individual, it's collective. I would love everyone to contemplate that. Because a lot of the time it's our imagination making a story that we don't need to make if we just come back to mindfulness and just be in the moment. We don't need to be afraid.
It's been absolutely beautiful talking to you today.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Cool.
I've so enjoyed it.
Thanks, Bryn.
It's been such
I've enjoyed it too.
Good, good.
I hope the listeners like it.
We'll
I hope
find
they're
out.
interested. Yeah.
It's been such a beautiful, hopeful, delicate conversation. Yet I say delicate, but hugely powerful. Really,
And that's psyche.
yes. That's psyche.
That's psyche.
There we go. Am I describing the conversation or am I describing psyche?
Yeah.
I'll be thinking about that for the rest of the day.
Yeah, good.
If people want to reach out and come and find you, how do they go about that?
They will do it.
If you want to give them a practical steer,
I don't know.
website.
Yeah. Just just put my name in. I come up eventually. But yeah, I just believe people come when they need to come, and something will, you know, it just happens. The right people choose the right therapist. Yeah.
Debbie, it's been absolutely beautiful talking to you. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.